So, welcome all to the Interfaith Prayer and Discussion. This is meeting number 184. The purpose of this meeting is to foster the devotional character of our society and to bring understanding among various religions, the common foundation of all the religions. I bring unity and world peace. We have a distinguished speaker today, but I will introduce him later. But I will ask Peter Musafiriadis to honor the indigenous people in the land, and then we will have the shorter version of our devotion. Peter?
Yeah. Sorry, Sivi, I was just focusing on something else,
Yes,
and I do apologize.
Yeah, you can honor the indigenous people in the land now.
Well, thank you very much, Siva. I would like to acknowledge a culture that's been around for many years. And maybe the way I might start is by letting you know that as a creative director, I produced many productions across not only Australia, but all over the world. I also produced non-Australia Day concerts. And the last Australia Day concert that I produced in 2012, I was with Joy Wondon Murphy, who's the most senior Wurundjeri elder that we have here in Victoria. And I asked Joy Murphy, Joy, how many thousands of people speak your language, the language of the Woiwurrung people? And there was silence. I was puzzled why there was this silence that sort of seemed to stretch into eternity. Then she, looked at me and she said, Peter, unfortunately, there's only one speaker left of the Woiwurrung language, one fluent speaker, and that's my auntie. Not too sure if her auntie's still alive. But the point I want to make is, how would you feel if you were the last speaker of your mother tongue? Before Europeans arrived in Australia, there was an estimated 700 languages and ethno-linguistic people groups that lived here. So we often think of Australia as being this monolith of these Aboriginal people. But each of these Aboriginal people had their own ways of being able to express themselves, make sense of all living things around them. And the Aboriginal peoples of Australia were extraordinarily complex, had their own social systems, which dated back tens of thousands of years. The discovery of Mungo in 1974 by Jim Bowler, or as Jim Bowler described it, Mungo discovered him as he was riding his motorbike over the sand dunes of the Willandra Lakes just across the Murray River. And that discovery was really important. Why? Because it smashed every single bogus theory out there that the humans of 35,000 years ago were just as complex and in many ways more advanced than modern day human beings. So I want to acknowledge the peoples of the land where I'm coming from today. The Woiwurrung, the Bunurong, the Djadjawurrung, the Tangarong, and the Wadurong people of the community of Melbourne had been living here for 50,000 years. I want to acknowledge their traditions. I want to acknowledge this place, which was an important place for spiritual traditions, for education, for coming together to discuss ideas, way before Europeans arrived. So on that note, I also want to acknowledge that this week is the NAIDOC Week celebrations. And that should serve as a reminder to every single one of us of the rich culture that existed here and how we can continue to learn from a group of peoples that knew how to connect with the land and the waters. And that's something missing from modernity. So on that note, I acknowledge all those before us. And if there's any elders today who are present, I'd like to also pay my respects to you, not only to the past and present, but to also those who will come after us. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. That's a beautiful way of honoring the people. First time we had such a generous appreciation of the indigenous people and their culture. Thank you very much. And we will go to the devotional part. I'll play the music first.
Oh, oppressors on earth, withdraw your hands from tyranny, for I have pledged myself not to forgive any man's injustice. This is my covenant, which I have irrevocably decreed in the preserved tablet, and sealed it with my seal of glory. This is my covenant, which I have irrevocably decreed in the preserved tablet, and sealed it with my seal of glory, of glory, of glory, of glory, of glory. This is my covenant.
Good morning, good morning.
At present, the light of reconciliation is dimmed in most countries, and its radiance extinguished, while the fire of strife and disorder hath been kindled and is blazing fiercely. Two great powers who regard themselves as the founders and leaders of civilization and the framers of constitutions have risen up against the followers of the faith associated with him who conversed with God. Be ye warned, O men of understanding, it ill beseemeth the station of man to commit tyranny. Rather, it behoveth him to observe equity and be attired with the raiment of justice under all conditions. Beseech ye the one true God, that he may, through the power of the hand of loving kindness and spiritual education, purge and purify certain souls from the defilement of evil passions and corrupt desires, that they may arise and unloose their tongues for the sake of God, that perchance the evidences of injustice may be blotted out, and the splendor of the light of justice may shed its radiance upon the whole world. By Scripture.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
Let us behave with others as we would with ourselves. Let us look upon all living beings as our good friends, for in all of them there resides one soul. All are but part of the universal soul. The person who believes that all are his soulmates and loves them all alike never feels lonely. The divine qualities of forgiveness, compassion, and service will make him lovable in the eyes of all. He will experience intense joy throughout his life. In the scripture.
May the wise Lord, who reigns at his will, grant to each of us that which he desires. I desire strength and endurance to uphold righteousness. This do you give me, O devotion, the rich rewards, the life of the good mind, and may the sovereign good be ours. According as one desires, please, may one receive, please, through thy most fasting spirit. O Lord, the wonders of the good mind, which you will give, is righteousness, with the joy of long life, all the days. Zoroastrian scripture.
In a safety and in bliss, may the creatures of all be of a peaceful heart. Whatever living things there are, whether weak or strong, with an unexpected, great or small, seen or unseen, dwelling far or near, born or awaiting birth, may all be blessed with peace. Let no one work another one's undoing, or show contempt in any place. Let no one wish another harm, through provocation or resentful thought. Just as a mother with her life protects her child, her only child, let all the embracing thoughts for all that lives by yours, in all embracing love for all the universe, in all its height and depth and breadth. Buddhist scripture.
Thank you. Thank you all for the wonderful readings, and the theme of the readings was human rights. And we have friends from different parts of the world. This was Ulagamma Lama from India, and there are friends from Malaysia, Liberia, where else? Maybe
Philippines.
Philippines, yes. So
Australia.
Australia, of course.
Kenya.
And Kenya and Canada. So it's a worldwide audience, and that shows how much Peter is important for us. I'll just quickly give the introduction of Peter that most of you have already read anyway. And also I will give a link, the website links that he has. Peter is an internationally recognized thought leader in culture as a driver of progress, social cohesion, and innovation, with a career as a conductor and creative director of some of the largest intercultural productions in the world. In 2002, he founded Cultural Infusion, which includes Diversity Atlas, a data-driven tool used worldwide for measuring and understanding diversity in organizations. Cultural infusion aims to create a culturally harmonious world through its brands, creative services, and award-winning digital initiatives. It has provided services to over 25 countries, and its education program, which utilizes the arts as the primary drivers, is delivered to more than 350,000 students annually. He is a winner of numerous international awards in interculturalism, including the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations Intercultural Innovation Award, as well as producing the winning slogan, Diversified We Grow, for their Do One Thing for Diversity campaign. Peter is the chair of the Lahore International Conference on Culture, a former global trustee of United Religions Initiative, a Salzburg Global Fellow, and in 2017, Peter was issued with the Peace Ambassador Award from the Center of Peace Studies in Sri Lanka, from which country I am. In 2021, Peter was awarded the Global Business and Interfaith Peace Award Silver Medal from the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation and the United Nations Global Compact's Business for Peace Initiative. The award recognizes individuals for their contributions to peaceful and inclusive societies. Well, he has a lot of credits to claim, but the time doesn't allow us. And I will put the link for his website and Facebook. You can always go and have a look at it. I have sent this in some of the invitation that I sent to you all. So now I invite Peter to give his talk, who we are, and take us through this, and maybe spare a few minutes at the end so that the urgent question anyone wants to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure I will. I've just texted my colleagues in Saudi Arabia, and they're going to give me a 5-minute note warning, so they might be starting after 8 o'clock. So thank you very much, Siva, for inviting me today, and thank you to every single one of you who are chiming in from many different parts of the world. I'm going to now share my screen, if that's okay.
Sure.
PowerPoint. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, Diversified We Grow?
Yes.
Okay then, thank you. I just want to see if I can get the chat up and running as well to here. Okay. So the topic of my discussion today is going to be Diversified We Grow. And Diversified We Grow was a slogan I developed for a UN campaign back in 2013. And when I developed the slogan, I wasn't just thinking of building socially cohesive communities, but I was also thinking about how diversity of thought and diversity of perspectives and how knowledge in many ways is based on the diversification of our ideas. So for me, it was, how can we use those different perspectives to foster innovation and solve the challenges that are facing all of humanity today? Because if we could do that, in many ways, we're going to bring about this concept of peace. But one of the things I've tried to do is also unpack these concepts of peace. And peace is a concept that varies all over the world. I never forget when I asked my daughter quite a few years ago, what does peace mean to you? And she went, shh. So to a child, it meant something really different. But I studied Koine Greek, which was the language of the New Testament at university. I initially set out to become a theologian, but the arts got the better of me. But the word peace in antiquity, prior to when the Greeks came into contact with the South Asians, had a very different meaning. Had a different meaning to the Buddhist notion and, the Shanti notion of peace. It meant to bring all the different components together into a state of equilibrium. The Greeks were into measuring all concepts. They had the pi concept, They had these infinity numbers, the theta, and many other numbers. But when it came to peace, the Greek word for peace means erini, and erini is derived from the verb ero. And in many ways, this concept of peace was also described through a circle as well. So in the New Testament, they have the word, the crown, Jesus Christ, was derived from this concept of erini, which was to bring everything together into this symbol of a circle, because the circle became the concept of peace and all the links that made it up. So if there was a missing link, peace would fall over. And what's interesting today, there's an amazing philanthropist who lives in Sydney called Stephen Killalea, who has now started to try to define this concept of peace through how we might be able to measure it. And I find that very interesting. But of course, that concept of peace did change. And it changed with Alexander. I refer to him as the expansionist. Other people refer to him as the Great. In many parts of the world, he's not known as the Great. But when he arrived in Jalalpur Sharif in 326 BC, and I visited that part of the world in North Pakistan, he came into a different notion of peace. And his soldiers at that time also began to find new ways of seeing the world. They arrived as polytheists, and many of them converted to Buddhism. And the Greeks, for those of you who don't know, became the protectorates of Buddhism. They personified the concept of Buddhism. And those ideas found themselves back into the West. So in many ways, Christianity was able to flourish because the preparatory work was done 300 years beforehand. I find that really interesting. So how do we understand peace, and how do we start to attach new meaning to it that can bring historical, sociological, and linguistic, meaning to this concept that we can all get behind? The topic of my discussion today is going to look at seeing how we can unlock the hidden diversity in every single organization, with the view of being able to bring about the enormous cultural value that comes with hidden diversity, in particular with cultural diversity. And how do we understand cultural diversity? And even a concept like diversity, what does that even mean? To me, that meant very different things up until 7-8 years ago. And some of the statements that I want to leave with you up front is, we don't know what we don't know. And who are we? I work with a lot of large organizations, and a lot of those large organizations that we work with, they know their customers so well. They know what the customer's going to buy before they've worked it out. I mean, just 2 days ago, I was on Google looking for a rack for clothes. And today and yesterday, I've just been receiving these messages, buy this rack, and advertising that's been coming at me. But what we noticed was a lot of organizations and a lot of the settings we operate in, we don't know who we are. And one of the reasons why is because human identity is extraordinarily complex. So how do we understand identity from a data perspective? How do we accommodate and acknowledge and value diverse attributes if we don't know what those attributes are? And today, we have people from all over the world. And I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves in the chat. And I'd like each of you to maybe share something about how you make sense of all living things around you, whether that might be as a humanist or as a Buddhist, or what branch of Buddhism or what branch of Islam that might be. So I'd like you just to take a couple of moments as you're listening to me, but also to maybe share with me the etymology of your name. How is your name connected to a place, or maybe a religion, or maybe it's connected to a saint, or maybe it's connected to a story you'd like to share with us? Names tell a lot about our identity. So if you could take some moments just to do that. And also the other question that I have here is, how do we create a safe environment where everyone's attributes are acknowledged, accommodated, and valued. So, a few words about me. After I studied religious studies at university, I went off and studied music at the Victorian College of the Arts. I spent 4 years studying conducting and composing in Czechoslovakia before it was split. In the US, I did a short stint for 6 months, and I did a stint in Italy for 8 months. That's me when I had hair. I don't have hair now. I worked as a creative director of a lot of large intercultural productions with many heads of state, even worked with the Dalai Lama. And what I realized with a lot of these events was a lot of the times they were just performative. It was great to celebrate our cultural diversity, but I realized that we didn't go deeper. And I wanted to go deeper when it came to understanding human identity. And in particular, how we make sense of the world around us. That's a question that's always interested me. And a question that might be able to drive social cohesion and peace. There are images here of my parents. My father is in the right photograph. He passed away a few months ago at the age of 95. And my grandparents in the photo on the left. That photo was taken in 1923 after the Ottoman Empire had just nationalized itself and became Turkey. And that was a really brutal period where there was bloodshed on both sides. And there was genocide committed everywhere. My grandparents managed to survive the death marches, a 400-kilometer track on unsealed road. They arrive at a port, they get on a boat, they make their way to Greece. The baby in the photo did not survive a few days after it arrived in Greece. That photo, when it was taken in 1923, my grandfather couldn't afford it. The photo resurfaced in 1957 when my grandfather went back into the big city of Thessaloniki from the village. And the photographer that took the photo stopped my grandfather in the streets, and he said, "I have something to give to you." And he goes, "Who are you?" He goes, "Well, I took a photo of you when you first arrived, and I regretted not giving it to you. And I felt guilty, and I thought one day I might see you again." And I'm very grateful because in that photo, there's a huge story. And as of course you can see, my grandparents were Greek Christians. They couldn't speak a word of Greek. No? My grandfather was actually part Armenian. And from what I understand from my nephew in Greece, he was also part Jewish. His original name was Aaron Artin. In 1905, he changed his name from Aaron Artin to Anastasios Athanasiou to avoid persecution because the pogrom was going on of the Armenians in the Cappadocia region of Greece towards the eastern central part of modern-day Turkey. And he managed to survive that pogrom. Him and his brother did. He grew up in an orphanage. And when he arrived with my grandmother, Despina, and their first baby, Tameni, which means a gift to God, when they arrived in Greece, my grandfather used to love visiting people and traveling. So they gave him the name the Musafir, which means the traveler or the visitor. And that's where my name Musafiriadis comes from. So I've told you a story behind my name. And I know there's a story behind every single name today. So what you see there is really stories of migration. My grandparents moved because of major instability in the world. And then my parents, my father, who was born in the 20s during a time of great poverty, and the 30s, the Great Depression of the 30s, and then World War II and the German occupation of Greece. And then just as you think things couldn't get worse, there was a civil war that broke out in Greece. It was awful. They migrated to Australia for a better life. They met in Australia and they lived here. My father, of course, met my mother, Diamando, who's still alive today. So, but in all of this, one thing has driven, in many ways, instability across the world is fear. So how do we deal with fear and how do we understand where it comes from and the biases that accompany fear? That's something that I have been asking myself for many, many years. because fear is something that's been around for 200,000 years, and it's been evolving, this biological mechanism in our brain. And it existed because of we needed to survive. We were always on the lookout. Behind us, there may have been an enemy, maybe a tiger, but it still continues today. How are we going to disrupt this fear? Because it drives discrimination. It drives all forms of discrimination. I believe religion has a huge role to play in that. The compassion, the empathy that comes with religion as well. Empathy in my culture literally means not to place yourself in the shoes of the other, but to place yourself in the suffering of the other. It literally means in suffering. We can learn from words of other cultures. And here there are some images from my first trip to Pakistan, and here at the Museum of Lahore, which is one of the great museums of the world. And I say it's one of the great museums of the world because if you went to the British Museum and you took out everything from the British Museum that wasn't British, you'd probably be left with a tiny room. If you tried to take out everything out of the Museum of Lahore that didn't belong to the region of Lahore, it would remain the same. The Museum of Lahore is a fascinating museum because it has the very first bilingual coin in the world. On one side it's Greek and on the other side it's Kharoshthi, which was the language that was spoken by the people of the region in that particular time. And it was in an Aramaic script. What's fascinating about that is, what does it tell you about the values of 2,000 years ago? A bilingual coin. Do you know of any bilingual coins today? This was innovation in thought. And this came about during the Greco-Buddhist period. Many people aren't familiar with it. Some of the greatest Buddhist teachers in the world were Greek Buddhist teachers from Sri Lanka. And there's a story about Nagasena. And Nagasena was this incredible sage, Buddhist sage, that had an answer to all the metaphysical questions in the world, the most complex questions. During his time, there was a fierce general, Greco-Bactrian general called Menandros. And Menandros had heard about Nagasena, who lived not far from Lahore, in the city of Sangala, which is now known as Sialkot. And it's fascinating because all his soldiers said to him, "You have to go and visit Nagasena. He will answer all your questions." So he plucks up enough courage. He gets in his golden chariot and 500 horsemen, and he tracks and he rides all the way to this temple. And he sees a Buddhist sage sitting there beside a pond. And a conversation unfolds. And that conversation transforms history in many ways. Because from that point in time, Menandros, who had conquered more cities than Alexander, decided to give up his empire to his wife Agathoclea and to dedicate the rest of his life to Buddhism and become a protector of Buddhism and allow Buddhism to flourish across the world. This is a story not many people know. And of course, there are two images there on the top. One there is of Vajrapani, who was actually Hercules protecting Buddha there. These are Greco depictions, Buddhist depictions of Buddha. What the Greeks did was they personified these concepts of Buddha, because Buddha just means being in the enlightened state. And in the top right was really the inspiration from my moustache. It wasn't Salvador Dali. It was the Greco-Buddhist statue of Lahore. And when I saw it, I thought, that's my inspiration. I want you just to read that on your own. I want you just to think of what the gravity of that statement. According to the United Nations, 75% of all the conflict that we have in the world has a religious and cultural dimension to it. My question to all of you is, why aren't we understanding culture better? Why aren't we understanding culture in its entirety and how it intersects with identity, with peace, with absolutely everything? That's a huge number. About $13.5 trillion is spent dealing with conflict on an annual basis that has a cultural dimension. It's enormous. But when we start to add other costs out there, the cost of gender inequity, the cost of disability, excluding people with disability, the cost of how we racialize each other or discriminate against each other because of one's caste or ethnicity or their religion. In total, this starts to add up to a lot. What can we do about it? Why haven't we done anything about it? Is the bigger question. And this requires us to understand identity better. And I believe religion has a huge role to play in this. A few months ago, I was invited to London to present at the Big Data AI conference. And you're going to say causation or correlation is not causation. I can almost tell you someone will come along and do a PhD on this, that since the rise of social media, there's been a rise in conflict across the globe. I want you to take your mind back to 1989, a very significant year. The Berlin Wall collapsed, and Fukuyama came out saying that's going to be the end of all wars, all divisions. We're all going to live in harmony. It's going to be the end of history as we understand it. But the same year, something else happened. Tim Berners-Lee gave us the World Wide Web. And in a period of 3 decades, the world went through this massive period of economic globalization. Without globalization of values and ethics, the world became super compressed, hyper diverse. Everything was being communicated instantly, which meant we had access to information across the world. So the ability to relate to the other has become more important than ever. I believe religion plays a huge role in this. I believe maybe I can use the word worldview and how we make sense of living things around us, whether that might even be as an atheist or as a humanist. We need to bring everyone into the conversation, and we need to center compassion in our work to do this. And at the same time, I want you to see how peace has been steadily declining across the globe since 2008, which is around the time social media exploded onto the scene. I mean, think of the rise of the Arab Spring and how that was fueled by social media. Think of the acrimonious discussions, the polarization that takes place, people being able to find their chamber, their echo chamber. Think of the politicization of identity, which has been accelerated through social media. We need a new way to solve this problem, this challenge. These numbers in front of you, I'm not going to talk to any of those numbers, because everyone will tell you a more diverse and inclusive, setting is going to create better outcomes. You're going to become 6 times more innovative and responsive to change and adaptive to change, and 87% better decision making, and it's going to improve your bottom line if you're a company. But if you wanted to embark on this journey of becoming more diverse and more inclusive and more equitable, what will that actually look like? How do you start this process? Well, it starts with data. And I want to tell you a story about Abraham Walt, a brilliant mathematician who escaped Europe just before World War II because of his Jewish heritage. He arrives in the United States of America, and the US Defense Force snaps him up straight away. And they said, Abraham, come with us. They take him to this huge warehouse full of all these planes riddled with bullets. And they said, what do you want me to do? They've got holes in in these planes. And they said, well, can you tell us where to put armor on the planes? We can't put armor over the whole plane because it's not going to take off. And he turned around to them and he said, well, you're showing me the wrong planes. Can you show me the planes that never came back? I'm sorry if this makes anyone feel uncomfortable because I'm showing you these bombers now. Yeah, he said, what? I can't help you. But of course, he said, yes, I can help you. What he was able to do was he was able to work out through a process of elimination that the planes that weren't coming back were obviously being shot in the yellow, where the yellow dots are. Now, the story isn't so much about the planes and where they were shot, but how this gave way to survivorship bias. There are many biases out there. Survivorship bias is really important because it gets us to ask the question, are we seeing all the data? Is all the data being presented? What's not being presented? How do we start to interrogate every single situation to make sure we can make an informed decision? Because when we don't have all the data, often it leads to disaster. And I see countless policies out there that are never able to meet their objectives because they are not based on holistic data sets. So if I asked you, thank you very much, everyone, for putting your comments in the chat. If I asked every single one of you what diversity means, can you describe it for me in the chat? One word of what diversity means to you. Can you please do that? Let me see what you come up with. One word for what diversity means to you. Anything coming through the chat? Beauty. Anything else? One word. Interdependence. I like that one. What else? If I wanted to understand whether I was more or less diverse, how would I even go about doing that? If I wanted to develop a strategy for that, variety, no, I like that one. Anything else? Diversity means one thing. Because if you asked me, I would have told you all of those things and 1,000 other things, and I would have gone on for a half an hour. Okay.
Various kinds of differences.
Thank you. Diversity is all of this stuff here that you see in front of you. It's what makes us all unique. It's the backgrounds, it's communication styles, life experiences, educational, geographic. It's all of those things. But diversity really means one thing. It means difference. And if it means difference, I can apply these metrics to this difference. Variety, which means the absence of homogeneity. Let's say, for example, one group we had, 2 Urdu speakers and 2 Hindi speakers. And in another group we had an Italian, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. We have greater variety in the second group. The first group is only 2 languages. The second group is 4 languages. That's not difficult to create an algorithm around that. The second metric is disparity. Where are we similar? Where are we different? So if we looked at the second group, the Italian, French, Portuguese, and Spanish, which are all Romance languages, Indo-European Romance languages, and then we compared that to another group, which was Hindi, Spanish, Japanese, and Arabic, where do you think there would be greater diversity, greater disparity? It would be the second group. Why is that important? Because one's ethno-linguistic background helps us shape cognitive processes. Supriya Jha, who heads up SAP, one of the largest software companies in the world for diversity, equity, and inclusion, she said recently that my identity as a woman, my gender, is less important to me than my identity as a Hindu. She went on to explain why. It informs how I think. It informs what I wear. It informs what I eat. It informs how I make living sense around us. So why do we ignore religion? We ignore it when it comes to this area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We think it's not important, but it's incredibly important. Balance is the next metric, which looks at how can we understand what that diversity looks like across an organization. A lot of organizations might say they're diverse, but the further north you go, the less diversity there is. The Australian Human Rights Commission released a report in 2016 titled Leading the Change, which identified that something like 97% of all the key leadership positions in Australia were held by people of an English-speaking background, not at all reflective of 51% of the population that come from a non-English-speaking background. I go into some organisations and I look at them, and I look at the marketing area, and it might be 90% Caucasian women. And in the finance area, it might be all people from South Asia, and the cleaners all from the Horn of Africa. But a very important metric and a sustainability metric of diversity and understanding who we are is mutuality, which is to what extent is one setting, one organisation reflective of the community it's delivering products or services to. This is incredibly important, because when you focus on your community and your environment, and you let your environment try to drive who you are, that forces you to look at yourself in a deep way. It forces you to take what we call this intersectional, all this multifactorial analysis of understanding your identity, your organisational identity. We have found that organisations that focus on this perform a lot better. The genesis for this idea was the law of equivariety, one of the principles of thermodynamics that states that any system, if it's not as equally as varied as the environment it's operating in, will create tension and disappear, or might disappear. I should correct myself there. So work that we've done in the healthcare area, we've noticed that hospitals that have workforces that reflect the patients they're delivering healthcare to, those patients spend less time in hospital, they have better health outcomes, they save money on translations, on interpreters. Start to think of all the socio and cultural determinants of health. Think of the role that religion plays in healthcare. What is cultural diversity? Well, you've told me what diversity means. What do you think cultural diversity is? Now, I wanted to understand this. I didn't know until 2015. It took me 300 literature reviews to work it out. Can you please put in the comment what you think cultural diversity means? Cultural diversity had been poorly defined. It had been analytically neglected, and it was in need of robust understanding. And after 300 literature reviews, we were able to disaggregate it into these four distinct areas. We have now a database of more than 8,500 secular and non-secular traditions. I mean, that's a pretty amazing world when you think about it. Country of birth is incredibly important, going back 3 generations. Language is incredibly important. There are over 11,200 languages, speech communities, and speech variations in the world. And of course, ancestry and cultures that you identify with, or ethnic groups that you identify with. This is what, and this is how we came to define cultural diversity. Because if you wanted to develop a strategy for it, you would then need to be able to disaggregate it into these areas, and then you would need inclusive data sets to be able to do this work. So when we started to do this work and we wanted to understand identity, we wanted to understand how those 4 pillars of country of birth, language, culture, and religion was able to intersect with age, with gender expression, with sexuality, with position type. Position level is important. Why is position level important? Because when you look at position level, it starts to give you some insight into, is equity playing out in an organization or not? And if it's not, why isn't it? It allows you to begin to interrogate maybe the processes and the structures that are in place. And then, of course, this concept of mutuality, which is extremely important. And of course, we can now get a sense, when we have this data around identity, how experience intersects with identity. We see incredible insights through the work we do. So an important part of understanding who we are is making sure that every single person counts through an inclusive self-ID process rather than an exclusive self-ID process. I can't tell you the amount of times I've done a survey, and in that survey, there's a box there called Other. And I think, surely I'm not the only person that ticks that box called other. Here you can see a quote from a person from Myanmar. When she completed the Australian Bureau of Statistics survey, she felt like she didn't exist. She goes, you lumped me into this broad category of mainland Southeast Asia. In Myanmar, there's 135 ethnic groups and 110 languages. Why do we ignore these aspects of identity? We don't need to do that anymore. But when we understand who the other is, that it allows us to understand why people behave the way they do. But more importantly, it allows us then to lean in and deepen our engagement with the other because we understand who they are. So the work that I've been trying to do over the last few years, and really is the combination of work I've been doing since 1988, is how do I create disruption to this perpetual cycle of limited data, which is leading to poor morale, people feeling like they're left out. How can I now start to use inclusive data sets where everyone can find themselves in those data sets, where I can now have insights that can start to inform how I might want to move forward and how I can start to include every voice in the work that I'm doing. So the work today, and what I wanted to focus on today with all of you, is the work that I've been doing with one of my brands called Diversity Atlas, which is trying to understand identity and the importance of developing a classification system, a global classification system, that where every single person can find themselves, if they want to opt in, to find themselves in that data. I'm just going to move on because I noticed we're running out of time. This is the slogan that I developed in 2013, and I'm going to play it for you now, which really in many ways sums up a lot of the work that I'm doing today.
Every person, every culture is a sum of human experience. Our history has shown that progress is possible through interaction and cooperation. Working together in an interconnected and intercultural age is the next frontier of our new and exciting world. Multiracial, multi-ethnic, multifaceted, multi-talented, multicultural. We must acknowledge the value of each unique culture by engaging, exciting, and enticing the next generation through intercultural understanding in communities, in the arts, in the media, in business, and in education. Greatness was not achieved by any one culture. Greatness was born of the human experience. Divided we fall, united we stand, diversified we grow.
I'm now going to open it to the floor for questions. I'd like to thank Siva and Vasanta Peri for inviting me today. But before I do that, I'd like to also offer just a moment's silence to those who are less fortunate than all of us. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you. That was a very beautiful presentation, and I think you have a lot to offer. As you said in my conversation with you, the time is very short, but a lot of research that you have done, a lot of contribution to the world peace and unity in a point of view of diversification and how to harmonize, diversify, and we can grow. And there is a question on the chat. What role do the arts play in creating unity in diversity? That was a question on
Thank
the
you
chat.
very much, Shadi, for your question. I've been working, I had a career in the arts for many years, for 20 years as a composer and creative director. And the arts really do create a safe haven for us to be able to explore all sorts of issues, first and foremost. You know, if you look at the music, for example, it's a universal language. It's something that every single person can understand. They can listen to it and they can feel the vibrations of it. You don't. The arts go beyond language. They're able to offer those intrinsic benefits to every single human being and allow us to really bridge, bridge our differences, form bridges where we can develop strong bonds with each other. And this is why nation states across the world engage in culture. They use the arts as a vehicle to drive cultural diplomacy.
Yeah.
Now, I see, music and I see dance, and I have seen what that has done for my children. Because I didn't grow up with dance, and we decided to introduce folk dance in particular and dances of the world to my children. And we've seen what an incredible journey they've gone on, because it helps you appreciate other cultures as well. It's a window into other cultures. And this is the beauty of arts, whether it be a song, whether it be a painting, whether it be a story that touches your heart. It's an amazing entry point. Arts are also great for being able to embody ideas too. This is what the purpose of the arts.
Okay, while others think of other questions, are you training people who can continue your mission in the world to bring about this unity?
Am I training people?
Yeah, to in the line of your thought and action, because this is a very important part that you are playing, which is I have never seen people looking in a different way and creating this database and going into each and every culture and languages and religion, all things.
So we are a team of about 55 staff at the moment, and we're rapidly expanding, and we're now building a network of contributors. We've now just started to set up a research center, which will be mainly in the Global South. And I'm interested in hearing the stories from the Global South, because I think the West and how they understand diversity in many ways has created a lot of backlash, and it's not a universal approach. If you think of the issues of racism, in America, and this concept of racism is really fraught, because we often we're touting this social construct of race as if it's a biological fact, when every single geneticist in the world has told us it doesn't exist. I think the Global South, when discrimination takes place, for example, in South Asia, it's not centered around, there may be colorism there, but it's not race-based. It might be ethnic or caste or religious-based discrimination. And this is why I think data is the way forward, because data allows us, and when I talk about data, I'm talking about understanding a human identity, the complexity of human identity. That's going to allow us to be able to deepen our understanding of who the other person is. If you want to develop an inclusion strategy, how do you even go about doing that if you don't have inclusive data sets? When I was speaking in London in March, I was already saying that we need to be careful. Just as social media has sent us on this steady decline in peace, AI might accelerate the process. Why? Because it's not based on inclusive data sets. When it thinks in America, when they think of race, they conflate ethnicity and race. And when you do that, it perpetuates difference, exclusion, and inequality, and even unequal health outcomes. So when we use the word race, we need to unpack that. So with Diversity Atlas, we have like a little membership model. There's going to be lots of different training programs that we're offering. It's a really tiny fee of like $55 to become like a member for it. Usually we work with organizations. That's something we're just about to introduce now. And there will be many courses introducing people to the value of, how, understanding these concepts from a data perspective can allow us to foster greater peace. I see Jung has her hand up. Jung, I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, sir. You're right, Peter. I am a Catholic person. I believe in compassion. I heard you talk about compassion, and I saw one of your writing about equity. What I'm asking, and you also mentioned about language. I think the problem, even you meet the most fair people, they try to do everything right, get the women into the boardrooms, and their programs may involve $1 billion instead of $100 million. So how we do the fundraising, because it's a master job, a masterpiece job, it will be on forever, because we need women in the boardroom. And you can see I walk in and out of the boardroom normally. I don't see that I am a woman. I don't see it's my gender or my racial got anything to do with the boardroom. So what I'm saying, we have to look into the language. Just like we keep saying, caste and class struggle and all this one. And so the radical student, they're radical. So they want modern language. And then they look back into the history and they study about Karl Marx, and they saw about class struggle, French Revolution, Russian Revolution, Chinese Revolution.
Can you ask your question, please?
So what
I can see where you're going. Can you get to the question? Because I think there might be some others.
So what I'm saying is, for your work, obviously you had to do a lot of employee opinion survey, because you work into the large organization. Employee opinion survey will tell you a lot. And I said, if one company gave you $1 million donation, 6 companies you need, you got $6 million. It's very easy. It's not that hard. The thing that we have to, like you say, raise awareness, and the job is nonstop.
Yeah. So yes, on that point, the work is nonstop. Why is the work nonstop? Because our environments are constantly changing, and something that's changing in our environments is culture. Ways of thinking, social norms, ways of behaving, the way we see the world through the way we make sense of living things around us, the way we each see the world. It's all different. And we need to be adapting to that those changes all the time. The lifeblood of culture is confluence. It needs to be reinventing itself all the time. I heard you make reference to several revolutions. And I see the youth. Youth have always been a great source for transformation and change. The question that I ask all youth out there, because they're asking a lot of questions, they're idealists, is the thing that you're trying to decenter or change, what are you trying to change it with? And if you create too much disruption, what will you do? Because if you study history, we know that history has told us that you end up reducing civilizations to rubble if you're not careful. You end up creating something a lot worse. I think we need to be challenged all the time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with students demonstrating.
Yeah. I think
because they question us. They force us to be thinking in a deep way. But I believe that we all need to lean in. And what we're seeing today is the politicization of identity, where people are gridlocked into seeing everything through the state of oppression. And that state of oppression may be tied up to an identity group, whether there might be a group of the LGBTQI community or women, or it might be youth or whatever it might be. We need to go outside of these bubbles, and we need to be mixing with people who are completely the opposite to us.
Yeah.
We need to build that as a skill. We need compassion to do that. Religion can bring that to the discussion. And when we begin to engage with people who are completely different to us, we can forge new alliances, and we begin to recognize that we have more to gain by knowing the other than not knowing the other. And we start to form friendships, and we ignite and spark something new. So we need to build that as a competency. And that competency I call intercultural competency. Because when I talk about culture, I'm not just talking about, ethno-linguistic culture, but I'm talking about, what are your behaviors? What are my behaviors? What's your way of thinking versus my way of thinking? What are your social norms? What are my social norms? What do I value which is different? And of course, language plays an important role in this, because the fact that we are now talking all in English is creating a racialized experience for many people. In my culture, love is not love. When someone says love is love, I go, what are they talking about? We have 20 different types of love. I mean, if you're a type person, you have 80 different types of smiles. So we need to bring cultural diversity into this area of equity. Now, what does equity mean? Equity is just recognizing that we're not all starting from the same place, socially or culturally. That's all it means. So it means you need to accommodate those differences to some extent. And of course, that doesn't mean it happens overnight. It means it's an ongoing process. That's what it means.
But you mentioned about global.
One second. I just want to introduce Tanu Brown. Is a youth from Liberia. He is here. Tanu. He really wants to contribute to the world to bring about unity and peace. So, as you said, youth are a very important force in bringing about the changes. But I wanted to.
I won't take long, please. I won't take long, because Peter been mentioned about global development, improvement, and fundraising, and most important, $1 billion that we need. And then later on, you focus that you want to do global south. But we're supposed to be interconnected with all different areas of the globe. So our job is really massive.
Global challenges require us to globally deal with that issue. There is no other way at the end of the day. Today, we have a new set of challenges facing humanity compared to the pre-digital age. And we also have environmental challenges as well. We have, exploding population in many parts of the world. We have river systems which are drying up. They're going to require global solutions. It's not going to be one culture that's going to be able to fix that problem up. Someone in England who's protesting there, they're not going to be able to solve the problem that people are having, in the Punjab region over the 5 rivers.
Thank you.
This is Tanu from Liberia. And
Thank you, Tanu. Do you have a question or comment you would like to make?
I wanted to ask, you mentioned that there was a lady in the story, her identity as a religion is more important than the identity of the gender. Now, I think that the identity actually create also a problem. Now, if you think that we have humanity as the identity of everyone, and other identities become subsidiary of those identities. So giving importance to the identity of humanity is a way that we should be. What do you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, we have to define what we mean by humanity, first and foremost. And we need to all subscribe to a set of values. The thing is, values aren't universal. I used to think values were universal. They're not, because one's ethno-linguistic background shapes values in a big way. So we need to create a new system, a new set of values that we can all get behind, at least so we can, operate in peace. I think that's integral to us moving forward. Hate is not the solution. Violence is not the solution. And every religion will tell us that. When it comes to identity, you cannot do work in this area unless you understand identity in its entirety and ensure that you have, and which is the work that I'm doing, inclusive data sets. You can't continue, which is what governments do across the world, to ignore people's identity when it gives them so much meaning. How do we create settings that people can start to bring their full self to that setting, to bring aspects of their identity which really are not going to harm others, but are going to be acknowledged? And organizations are doing this now. We work with multinational companies which are now building prayer rooms for their staff, are recognizing that your day is really important. You don't celebrate Christmas. We live in a society where we have national days around Christianity. They're not important to you, so let's trade them. Let's have floating days. We'll give you off Eid, or we'll give you off Buddha's birthday coming up, or full moons coming up, and we'll trade it with other days. This is what it means to be living in a globalized world, especially for those countries where their populations are becoming increasingly globalized. Because if you try to force an identity on someone, well, that just creates resentment at the end of the day. And if resentment builds, we know what that can lead to.
Any others who wants to make a quick question or comment? Otherwise, we can let Peter go because he has another assignment.
They haven't let me know yet, so they must be running late. So I've still got a few minutes to go.
Catherine, Pina, Nerea, Asamat, Margaret, Ernie, anyone? Chanu, Vasanta, Jiva.
Yes, hello.
Yes, Tanu. This is the youth from Liberia. Do you have a question or comment, Tanu?
Yeah, are you people getting me clear?
Say that again.
So, I want to extend, yes, a little comment. Is a comment?
Yes.
Thank you,
A comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so firstly, I want to thank our humble presenter, Mr. Peter, for presentation regarding dignity of diversity.
His internet may not be.
Get to those places, we will. Are you getting me clear?
Okay.
We lost you there for about
Hello.
15 seconds. Maybe you might want to start again. Tarnue.
Yeah, so basically we can yeah, so we will definitely come to covering the world, the globe, in as much as we incorporate more youth into this, because our entire world right now, I mean, if we look at the revelation, if we look at development, I mean, nothing is done in the absence of youth. So, I mean, there should be some a perfect plan make for the incorporation of more youth, and while our older people, can play some supervisory role in challenging and in battering this cultural diversity, this restoring our cultural values, and like that. So again, Tano from Liberia, and thanks, Mr. Peter, for your perfect presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tarnue. Did you was there a question there, sorry, Tarnue, or was that more or less a comment? Did you want me to speak to that?
It was a comment.
Again? No, it was a comment.
Thank you very much. Thank you for you. And I understand Liberia, Liberia, in terms of its GDP, is probably is almost at the other end of the extreme of where Australia is. And I want to thank you very much for participating today. And we know that you have your own set of challenges there, which are, I could only imagine what it must be for the entire population of Liberia compared to, us here, in Australia. So my thoughts go out to your country, and I hope that the world can be a different place in the future, which allows you to have an equal footing to other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Nerea Azamat.
Hi everyone. My name is Narea from Kenya, and I want to thank the speaker for the topic on diversity. And for people who have been watching news, we see whatever is happening in Kenya, the Gen Z versus the government, and we are breaking the chains. And I really want to appreciate you because I had a topic on cultural diversity. I'm a law student, so I think it's an eye-opener, and I've learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to be in Kenya, I think October, Nerea. So I think in Nairobi, I'll be visiting. So I'll be there. UNESCO has invited me to talk at a conference. So I welcome the opportunity to meet you in person.
Please, please, I would also like to meet you. Welcome. Karibu Kenya, we say that.
Thank you. I'll put my email in the chat. Please feel free to write to me. Thank you. Were there any other questions or comments?
Catherine. You had to unmute. Unmute, Catherine. Pina?
Not really. I did not have, but I found it very interesting. Very interesting.
Thank you. Pina?
Thank you so much, Mr. Peter, for the wonderful talk. And also, Asante sana Nadia. I was in Kenya. We were in Kenya.
Karibu.
I look forward to meeting you too. I look forward to having coffee with the both of you.
So wonderful. Yeah. So what I love when you talk about the culture, there is something like, within me that is like animating me, the sound of music, the dance, and the beauty of the costume. This just came to my mind, and I'm just so happy, even just to imagine that. So like when we first arrived in Tanzania in 1980, so we just saw it was a big place, or in an open place, and there was music going on, and everyone was dancing. Everybody, child to older people. And I was so happy to see this kind of culture, so happy people. And they just dance anywhere, anytime, even in our gatherings, like in the Baha'i gatherings, even giving to the Baha'i Fund, there is a music for that. There's a song that we line, and then the song about giving to the fund, and then we each one of us will drop something in the box. And there's a song for that. It's just amazing. This culture is something that we celebrate our diversity. And because of that, as you said, it's like the music, different notes. It becomes beautiful only because of the differences. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your comment, Pina. And of course, Kenya, I mean, I think there's over 65 languages just in Kenya that are spoken alone, and hundreds of tribes. So I think it's wonderful how every single culture has its own distinct traditions, and in each of those traditions, and artistic traditions and music traditions, they are a value for values, storytelling that get passed from one generation to the next. And this is the beauty of cultural diversity. It's humanity's greatest asset, and we don't do enough to draw upon it to foster better education, reducing poverty, driving innovation, building socially cohesive and peaceful communities. It's wonderful. There is knowledge-based systems based in every culture of the world. So we need to unpack that, and we can do that today. And we can do it with the view of being able to bring about greater peace.
Pina is actually originally from Philippines.
I gathered that, yeah.
Now living in Malaysia, but she has been in Sri Lanka, in Africa.
Wow.
And
You're a citizen of the world. You know, the very first person to say I'm a citizen of the world, but this is what I was told, was Diogenes. He was a cynic philosopher, and he lived the life of a dog. Actually, the word sin comes from kin. You can look this up, kin in ancient Greek. And he lived in a barrel. And he was the first to profess that I'm a citizen of the world. He did not want to see himself belonging to any distinct culture. And if you think of the world prior to nationalism, it was a pretty diverse part of the world. Nationalism, what it did was it essentialized culture. It said, well, for this geographical region, we're just going to have one culture. I mean, ridiculous. I mean, in the world, we have 193 full member states, according to the United Nations, 2 non-member states, Palestine, the Holy See, and about 65 dependent and overseas territories. Yet we've got another 8,500 cultures. I think we just need one country, and it's called the Earth. The unity and diversity. Well, let's just call it that, Wouldn't it be wonderful?
Yes.
Thank you. Ramjan, we have a question or comment from you. Oh, no, that was a clap.
Ramjan is a lady from India. She doesn't speak English, but she participates in our program in Tamil that we have every week. And once in a while, she comes and just observe. I don't know whether she will be going to ask any question in Tamil.
It's not Ramjan, it's Mamjan.
No, it is
Ramjan. Ramjan is not here.
No, it is Ramjan.
No.
Okay. One final comment from Jung, and then we can conclude.
Thank you, Siva. Thank you, Peter. I just wonder, as a musical director, do you sing at the same time when you do conducting?
I conducted choirs for many years.
Yes.
When you're conducting an orchestra, you're not singing, of course, because you have to let the orchestra play. I'm not unless the composer said we want the conductor to sing. But usually I would always sing all the parts for choirs. And I haven't done conducting for many years. I always get invited to, and I'm starting to forget. This is the thing. But I write music as well. I wrote a mass for didgeridoo, choir, orchestra, and soloists. I've written hundreds of songs. Melodies would always come to me easily.
So you should contact the opera house and see if they probably will be very, very happy to have you as a conductor and a singer, opera.
I had that career already. For me now, I have a different career. But thank you very much.
But you can sing for us today.
Yes, I can. Maybe I can sing a Byzantine chant for you. Okay. And maybe I can sing from my tradition, the words in ancient Greek. It will be glory to the ages of ages. Amen. and I'll sing that in Koine Greek, and it starts with the Kyrie eleison. Kyrie, 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 Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie. Doxa si, doxa si, doxa si, doxa si, tu seonas, tu seonon, doxa si, doxa si, tu seonas, ton Doxa sis tu seonas ton eo non
Thank you, Peter. I think I know that song, Careless Song. It's very Latin, like sort of music. I mean, similar.
The Lord have mercy, glory to you, glory to the ages of ages. Amen.
Yeah, that's like Latin equivalent. Thank you so much. Yes, that's multi-talented, Peter.
Thank you. And the song that I sang then, I don't know. It was whatever came to me. So that was the song and a melody I've never ever sung before. It was me just improvising, and it was me just my heart deriving the energy from every single one of you.
Thank
the
you.
unity in diversity to give something back to you, and I want to express my gratitude to every single one of you.
Thank you. And
Thank you very much.
maybe closing. We didn't have a closing music earlier. Shadi, would you like to sing a prayer?
Oh, Mr. Perry, I will. Yeah, but I just wanted to say, Peter, that was amazing and so inspirational. And Musafer, in terms of your name, also means traveler in Persian.
That's correct. In over 1,100 languages and speech communities, it means the traveler. It was the word that was given to the name given to my grandfather, because he used to love to travel and visit people all the time. Thank you very much, Shadi.
Thank you.
And Shadi, where are you from? Which city are you?
I'm in Sydney, Australia, and I'm really enjoying this amazing unity and diversity that we're experiencing. It's really an amazing energy, as you just said. And I wanted to offer a prayer for every one of us who's facing any kind of tests or difficulties, and for people around the world who, as you asked for a minute of silence. So I just wanted to invoke on a higher power to aid us all as we are all travelers through life. And this is a prayer from the Bab. It's called, "Is there any remover of difficulties save God?" Is there any remover difficulties. Save God. Say, praise be God. He is God. All are his servants, and all are bound by his bidding.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. And Young, do you want to sing a prayer?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna sing songs for the children. I mean, like we used to stay in a boarding school in a French style, and this is all the children sing every day. Dans le jardin de mon père, les lilas sont fleuris, tous les oiseaux du monde viennent y faire la nuit. Auprès de ma blonde qui fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde qui fait bon dormir. It means every day the children just run around the garden and singing, and they think about their parents and they thank you, the gratitude for the happy life, lovely life that God given to them and the parents given to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think Peter has motivated this art and music in everyone. Is anyone else who would like to sing something briefly? Ina or Tanu or Nerea? Or...
Siri, sorry to chime in. I need to leave now.
Okay, thank you.
Notification. Thank you all once
Thank
again.
you. Thank you very much, Peter.
God bless you.
And if
Thank
you want to
you.
reach out to me, I put my email.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, is there anyone who wants to sing?
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
You want
Netra can sing a song.
who?
Netra from Kenya.
Okay. Where would you like to sing?
Yeah. Oh God, my beloved, my heart's desire. Oh God, my beloved, my heart's desire. Glorify thou, O Lord my God, thou in truth you are the King of kings. Glorify thou, O Lord my God, thou in truth you are the King of kings. Mungu wangu, mpendwa wangu, wajaya moyo wangu. Mungu wangu, mpendwa wangu, wajaya moyo wangu. Atukuzwa ewe Mungu, hakika wewe ni mfalme wa ufalme. Atukuzwa ewe Mungu, atukuzwa ewe Mungu, hakika wewe ni mfalme wa ufalme. Glorify thou, O Lord my God,
Thou in truth you are the King of Kings.
Thank you. It was a wonderful song.
Thank you.
Catherine, do you want to sing a song?
Asante sana.
Do you want to, Pina, do you want to sing a song?
Oh, if no one else, I'll try.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to sing with the Hindi
And,
translation.
And Tahire, if you are there, you can sing a song too. Okay, Pina.
This one is from the hidden words, free thyself from the prison of self. Lose thy soul, free. Okay, I'll sing it. Free thyself from the prison of self. Lose thy soul from the prison of self. Seize thy chance, seize thy chance. Oh, my servant. Oh, aloka potri agyani. Rome Romomi Shabdi Jagatu Suniri Mitiri Kata Purani Oh Agyani Oh Agyani.
Thank you, Pina. Wonderful.
Thank you. Tahire, do you want to say anything or sing a song? Tahire? ரம்ஜான் அம்மா நீங்கள் ஏதாவது சொல்ல போறீங்களா?
I think Vasanta's turn.
You want to go home?
Vasanta home.